Hello! Welcome to the Esoteric Podcast Extra episode. Another one. Because we have a million of these, man.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am t.j.bunker. With me, as always, is Wesley. This is the Esoteric Podcast, an extra episode. We're actually doing these so often now, we are considering coming up with a name and just committing to doing this weekly. This is like the fourth week in a row, I think we've done one since the Nintendo Switch was announced. That was our first extra episode.
Yeah, was that our first extra episode?
I think so. At least our first extra episode that wasn't tied to our usual podcast on Sundays.
Yeah, I think, you're right, I think.
Because, I know that technically our first extra episode was when RJ was unable to make it for the Warcraft discussion, and he wanted to do his best to defend that movie.
In 2 minutes.
And he spent all of 2 minutes doing it. I believe that was our first bonus episode.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
So this is the Esoteric Podcast. Usually on Sundays. We have managed to make every Sunday. I see no reason we cannot continue. But we do a live stream over on Twitch at 3 p.m. Central. That is normally a 2-hour podcast. It gets edited down to about a 90-minute, sometimes 60-minute podcast that gets uploaded to YouTube on Saturdays. We also do OST reviews on Tuesdays. And these extra episodes that get posted, I don't actually know if when they're getting posted. That's a Wesley thing.
I just post them as soon as we finish talking.
Oh, okay. So apparently we've been putting double episodes up on Tuesdays for a while.
Yeah.
If we decide to do this a regular thing, we should move it to like Thursday nights or something. So that way it's a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we also are over on Twitter right now. Twitter basically just tells you when our episodes go up on YouTube and when we're streaming over on Twitch. We are hopefully going to be getting better at that. This week or maybe next week, I don't have a firm timetable yet, but my blog is finally going to go live. I gave this week as the deadline because the Dungeons & Dragons book, Volo's Guide to Monsters, came out on the 15th.
Is that an expanded version of the Monster Manual?
It's a new version of the Monster Manual.
Oh, all right.
New monsters. Some of the same types of monsters, because orcs were obviously in the first Monster Manual, but they have more information about orcs, different types of orcs with different stats than the stats presented in the first Monster Manual. A lot of background information, societies and stuff like that, and a whole section where they present new player race options that are usually considered more monstrous, like orcs and goblins and lizard folk and
could we finally get a legitimate shard mine race?
I don't think that is in the works for Volo's Guide. I haven't seen it yet. I do not yet have my hands on my copy. I will be getting it soon, and then I'm going to write my reviews of it in a written blog that will then become a weekly thing where I will have to pick a new topic every week about whatever I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So, there's that. And then, if you really, really like what we do, you want to support us, you want to give us some money so you can, see our faces while we're doing this instead of this logo you're currently staring at, assuming you're watching it on YouTube with the video up, instead of you're doing the intelligent thing and playing the audio while going over to do something else on the internet, because let's face it, we just have a logo there. But so we'll get some cameras, and if you want to support us and all of that, check us out over on what is the name of that place?
Patreon.
Patreon, thank you, God. Check us out over on Patreon, and you can support us there, give us some money, and we will thank you greatly for it, and get some cameras and some other equipment. We are looking to add even more shows coming up here in the spring and over the summer. As soon as we get some money to get some equipment together to do some of these shows. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be crazy. And yeah, we would like your contributions. If you like what we have to say, please contribute.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the aftermath of the election.
Yeah.
Here in the U.S. last week, on November the 8th, is election day in the U.S. We had a presidential election. The only viable candidates, I mean, there were like 15 on some ballots, but the only viable candidates for president were Hillary Clinton for the Democratic Party and Donald Trump for the Republican Party. And yet, nobody particularly cared for either candidate. But in the end, Donald Trump won, and there have been many think pieces written in the last week about what this is going to mean to people. We're going to talk about one aspect of that here in this episode. But first, I was not on our most recent podcast put up after the election. I had work obligations. I spent 14 hours doing backbreaking labor overnight.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that on the podcast.
You mentioned on the podcast? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had all of like 2 hours between getting home and getting to bed after being up all day Saturday, then working overnight, 14 hours of backbreaking labor, and then I had like 2 hours to get in a quick nap. And yeah, my alarm, I have an alarm that I cannot turn off without solving math problems. There is no snooze button. I literally, if I wanted to stop, I have to do math problems on my phone. And I remember waking up to my alarm, trying to do the math problems to shut it up, and being very close to just chucking the phone down the hallway so that I couldn't hear it anymore and going back to bed. Because I was so out of it and so tired, I could not figure out these simple math problems. And we're talking like, what is 12 times 10 plus 13 minus 5? And you don't even have to type in the answer. You have 4 answers to choose from, and I couldn't get it right. It was rough. But yeah, no, I was out of it, and I could not do anything. So I was going to mention something during that about the presidential election, and specifically about some of the reactions to it and my views on it. So I'm going to start with that here today. Shouldn't be terribly long, and then we're going to get into the main thrust of why we're having this discussion today. So, of course, Donald Trump was elected, and everybody is baffled. Okay, not everybody. A lot of people supported him. We're like, aha, yay, he wins. But a lot of people in the news media and people who do video game and movie stuff, a lot of the people that I read on the internet, they put up a lot of the content that I like, are just sitting there going, oh my God, how did this happen? This is so fucking terrible. And the thing running through most of these posts, even the ones that are trying to be conciliatory, is that a lot of the people who supported Trump are racists, and even those who aren't racists, they're only claiming they aren't racist because they still voted for a racist guy and they still wanted a racist guy. And even if you thought that Trump's views on like trade were okay, how are Trump's views on trade something that is so good that you would be willing to put this racist asshat in power who's going to like objectively make people's lives worse?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. That the people who voted for Trump, I happen to know a lot of people who voted for Trump. I also personally know a lot of people who voted for Trump, and I personally know a lot of people who voted for Clinton. I personally know a lot of people who said, fuck this shit, I'm out, and either voted for a third-party candidate, even though there was no chance in hell of that third-party candidate winning, or, like me, stayed home, didn't bother to vote. If you want to hear my opinions on that, we talked about that extensively in our Election Day podcast you can find here on YouTube. But the thing is, these people aren't racists. They are not They are not voting for Trump because he's racist. They voted for Trump in spite of his racism. They looked at the two candidates who were likely to win. They dismissed everybody else because, voting for anybody else is not worth it. It's throwing away your vote. But they looked at the two candidates who were likely to win. They looked at Trump and they looked at Clinton. And yes, while, theoretically they think about it and they're like, okay, there is the distinct possibility that gay people and transgender people and minority people and Muslim people and all of that might be persecuted and stuff under Trump. That is all a theoretical thing for all of these people. A lot of these people don't know a lot. I don't live in an area, but a lot of the heavily Trump areas were, mostly white people, mostly Christian people, mostly straight, cisgender, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So for them, even if they, they respect minorities and they don't want minorities to suffer, for them it is still a theoretical thing. It's not something they have actual experience with. Meanwhile, they do have actual experience with democratic policies that, in the opinion of these people, is gutting middle America. A lot of, and not even just democratic policies, but some other Republican policies and shit. That is a very real thing to them. Their lives are worse, and I don't care who you are. If you have to weigh what is such a real thing to you, your town that you grew up in, that you've spent 30, 40, 50 years living in, becoming a ghost town because you can't get jobs and you can't do anything else, and you want to preserve that. You don't necessarily want to tear down the progressive culture of San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles. You don't hate the big cities, but you don't want to lose your culture either. You want to preserve that. It's the exact same argument that minorities make against people who say, well, when you move to America, you should learn to speak English and you should start adopting American culture. And those people don't want to lose their heritage. Well, these small town people, they don't want to lose their heritage either. They're willing to change it. They're willing to get rid of the racist tendencies because, once again, most of these people are not racists, But that small town charm and knowing everybody in town and all of that is a thing they want to preserve. And from their perspective, looking at it from their point of view, the political elite, the Democrats especially, not only don't care, they seem to be actively campaigning to eliminate that whole culture. So when you are looking at it like that, and you have that very personal thing, yes, from an objective standpoint, the types of things that minorities and gay people and transgender people could theoretically suffer under a Trump presidency, especially if some of his more out there promises somehow come to pass. I don't think they will. I'm confident that a lot of other Republicans in Congress and shit are gonna be like, whoa, dude, that's too fucking far. We're not going to help you with this, and they're going to put a stop to a lot of that shit. But even though objectively those things, even the stuff that does happen, is probably worse than what these people would suffer, that's a theoretical debate. That is all about, yeah, okay, somebody out there is suffering. When you are actually suffering, and I'm not trying to compare, the suffering of Middle America to the suffering of minorities and stuff. Let's face it, the people currently going through civil wars in the Middle East and enduring those terrorist attacks, they are in far worse position than people in Middle America are. But the people in Middle America are suffering to some degree. And when you are suffering to any degree, I don't care how freaking optimistic and how open-minded you are. When you're the one suffering, you start getting tunnel vision, and the only thing that you're concerned with is, how can I stop suffering? How can I stop my own suffering? How can I, get out of this? It is a human nature to look at it from that perspective. So these people in Middle America, they see their way of life being eliminated. The small town friendly charm. Even Middle America towns that are made up of multiple cultures and multiple races. And therefore, aren't racist. Your next door neighbors and your best friends are black and Mexican and Chinese, and so you're not racist. But every single person there has this small town thing. You know those neighbors. They're not the random black guy whose name you don't even know down the hall. They're Bob or whatever an appropriate black guy name is. I don't know. I live in one of the mostly white towns, unfortunately, so I don't know a lot of culturally appropriate names.
They're pretty much just regular names. I had two friends who were African American. One was named Jacob, the other was named Bobby. So
okay, sure. Well, I do know that there are also Shaniqua, and I don't want to sound racist, even though I probably do, by using Bob as my example. But yeah, so the same thing goes. Even in places like that, and they aren't very common, but they do exist. But they're small towns, and they like being small towns. And there has to be a way to get globalism to do all of the stuff that the Democrats especially are pushing for, getting rid of boundaries, political boundaries, racial boundaries, gender boundaries, get rid of all of that, become a big worldwide utopia, basically. There has to be a way to achieve that goal without grinding out that small town type of life. Yes, bring it, the small towns that are indeed kind of xenophobic and homophobic and stuff. Get rid of the xenophobia and the homophobia and stuff. But there has to be a way to continue supporting the good stuff about that small town.
Yeah.
And the people who are in those small towns, they feel like they're under attack. And the only thing they can see is their own pain, because all other pain is theoretical. Their pain is very real. So these people who voted for Trump did so, yes, to alleviate their own pain. And yes, it may very well have the result of other people suffering even worse. But given the choice between you yourself suffering, which is what they see would happen if Trump or Clinton had been elected, or some theoretical person you've never met also suffering, but suffering worse, most people are going to take the let's prevent my own suffering route. Because let's face it, they're people. It's really, really easy to pretend that somebody else's suffering isn't going to happen. It's really easy to pretend that, and I sort of did it earlier, but it's really easy to pretend that Trump is not going to have power like he claims. He's not going to be able to enact all these racist policies. Somebody out there will stop him from doing that while still letting him do the stuff that is going to save your little community. Whereas voting for Clinton would guarantee ruining your life. So it's really easy to look at Trump, vote for Trump because he said he would save you, and hope that after he's started saving you, you can stop him from hurting other people. It's the way you can look at it to balance it with yourself. Most of these people who voted for Trump are not racists. We need to stop pretending they are. We need to stop putting up rants on the internet talking about how all the racists won. Because, yes, we have a guy who at least campaigned as a racist, and he campaigned as a xenophobe, and he campaigned as a homophobe. I'm not certain he's any of those things. I'm actually would not be surprised if Trump doesn't have any of these opinions. They were just focused grouped to be what would get him elected. So he went with it.
That reminds me. I remember seeing the 60 Minutes interview Trump recently did as his first thing as being the new president-elect or whatever it is. he said that he's not going to touch LGBT rights.
Okay. Which is kind of surprising considering his vice president.
Oh yeah, I was really surprised about that. But he is going to apparently elect judges or have judges come into the Supreme Court that would overturn Roe v. Wade. That is one of the things I do remember hearing.
Okay. Abortion is a very complicated topic. Not complicated for some people on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
But definitely a complicated topic. We're not going to tackle today. But
yeah.
So yeah. That being said, everything I just said being said, there is the topic we're going to talk about today. Because one thing that a Trump presidency is likely to bring about is the dissolution of the Affordable Care Act. For those of you who have been living under a rock in the U.S. or don't live in the U.S. and listen to our podcast anyway, the Affordable Care Act is otherwise known as Obamacare, because President Obama is a big advocate of it. I'm always annoyed when it gets called Obamacare because I feel that gives Obama too much credit, because he wasn't really involved in the writing of it. He wasn't really involved in his biggest thing was the campaigning for it. So for him to get credit for it, in my opinion, really degrades those who did put in all the effort and time to write this and get this in front of people.
Yeah.
But it is the U.S. healthcare law that since it was put into place, fun thing, it was put into place using pretty close to the same measures that Trump and Republicans are looking to repeal it with. In other words, Democrats had House, Senate, and presidential control at the time, and a lot of Republicans especially feel that it was put into play. It was shoved down everybody's throat. Is a very very usual way of putting it for these people. But yeah, they see the Affordable Care Act as a terrible thing that when the Democrats briefly gained control of all three of those parts of government, or the two parts of government, technically the legislative and the presidential, executive, that's the word I'm looking for, executive branch, that they enacted this, and that the fact that shortly thereafter control of the legislative branch was much more evenly divided, with a lot of Republicans gaining ground that had Democratic seats before, was seen by Republicans as, look, you people overstepped here. You were not put into, we did not elect a bunch of Democrats to do this. And then you did it anyway, and now look, the reaction is, bam, you lost, we got a bunch of Republicans in place. This says the people want it gone. That is still what's being said now that Republicans have gained control of the legislative and executive branches, is, hey, look, you guys screwed up. You made your Affordable Care Act, and now people are putting us in charge because they want it gone. They feel Democrats overstepped. Me, I don't like the Affordable Care Act. I feel that it was it enacted a bunch of things that I hate. I would love to see it go away. I do know that one of the biggest problems with it going away is there are millions of people who will lose insurance who actually need it.
Oh, you're talking about the elimination of having insurance regardless of pre-existing conditions?
Yes. Well, that's part of it.
Actually, Trump said he's not going to get rid of that part.
Well, no, the thing is, Trump and Republicans have been talking about that, but they have to put together their own bill to get through Congress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because if they get rid of the Affordable Care Act and they don't have a replacement in place, yeah, you're screwed. Insurance companies go back to screwing people because insurance companies will do what insurance companies will do. But in addition to that, the Affordable Care Act did, in part, do what its name says. It made insurance affordable for some people. There are millions of people who can afford insurance now who couldn't afford insurance before. And a lot of those are women and children, mothers and children. I must not fall into this affordable care thing, or health insurance is way more stupidly expensive than even I realized. Because with all of the government subsidies that I can get, I'm still spending $100 a month on insurance, on health insurance. My auto insurance, I spend $250 every 6 months. My homeowner's insurance is only $800 a year. Health insurance is by far the most stupidly expensive thing. And I don't know how it, unless there are plans out there that I'm not entitled to for reasons. I make minimum fucking wage at a 40-hour week job. So yeah, I literally have no idea how my insurance could be. I suppose if you're working minimum wage and have a part-time job.
I could see that.
But if you're working minimum wage and have a part-time job, I literally have no idea how you afford food and housing. Since I'm making minimum wage and have a full-time job and can barely afford such things. So yeah, I guess there's a good reason to give you free insurance. But yeah, the problem with this is it has actually made insurance way more expensive for other people. One of my friends, much with the political divide I had mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people who both suffer from and benefit from the Affordable Care Act. I have friends whose insurance premiums for their family went from less than $100 a month to over $300 a month, despite no appreciable difference in salary. Since the Affordable Care Act went into effect, I mean, that is a 300% jump in their insurance premiums because of the Affordable Care Act. They did not get a 300% jump in salary.
Yeah.
But I also know people who could not afford insurance before and now can. So yeah, it's a thing. I hate the Affordable Care Act, and I hate most government things, because they don't affect the actual issues underlying what's going on here. And a lot of people out there will jump right into comments and get on the internet and tell you all about how, well, of course the Affordable Care Act didn't do that. It had to be neutered and what have you to put it through Congress because, you know, the Republicans would have found a way to stop it if, you know, we went full on the way we should be doing it. A lot of people are like, yeah, we got to do the single payer system. The government handles everything, you know, like other countries do. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of choice. As much choice as I can get. Single payer system does not give you any choice whatsoever, which means if your care sucks, it's literally all you get. And if you really want the government running health insurance, look at how well they're doing at the VA.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, I don't trust the government either. Yes, other governments have made this work, but I always look at it as, yeah, you can have a benevolent dictatorship, still a fucking dictatorship. I'm not a big fan of dictatorships. Maybe sometime we'll do an extra episode on my beliefs in democratic workplaces. I don't like the dictatorships that jobs have, where the owner of the company is the boss and he has his tiers of government below him all the way down to the lower level employees who have to do what what they say. I think that's stupid. I think it's bad for companies. I have proof that it's bad for companies, at least in the instances I have. I'm sure somebody has proof that my ways don't work out there somewhere. And we can argue about that sometime. But yeah, I believe in democratic and choices in companies while you're working there. There's no way in hell I'm going to freaking support what is essentially a dictatorship in health insurance, no matter how benevolent a dictator you have. So, yeah, the biggest problem that I see is none of these things, no proposal I've ever heard for fixing healthcare in the United States focuses on the main problem of everything's too damn expensive. All the healthcare legislation we've done is not about making healthcare less expensive. It's about shifting who pays for it. And it's ridiculous. Why is that what we're focused on here? Why are we not focused on lowering costs, actual costs, not just costs you have to pay and somebody else pays the rest of it? No, the actual total cost that everybody is paying. Let's face it, medical costs have gotten so high that things like a yearly checkup, just going in, having a doctor check you out and go, yep, everything seems okay, nothing to worry about. Yeah, now that is a thing that is so expensive that people want insurance to cover it. And the reasoning is always, well, if you get one of those regular health checkups, you're less likely to have an expensive medical thing happen later. There are other studies that tend to disagree with that, and show that having a yearly medical checkup in a lot of cases actually leads to more expensive things because, hey, we saw something that looked like it might be okay, so we spent $25,000 making sure it was not bad. Turns out there was nothing wrong. You had, too much steak over the last month and it elevated some reading we took or whatever. I'm not a medical doctor, but it elevated some reading and it took $45,000 to determine, oh no, you're fine.
Whoops.
But you can use the same argument in another sector that has insurance, automobiles. If you regularly change your oil in your car, your engine won't seize and you won't have to spend as much on a new freaking engine. And your auto insurance company will laugh if you ask for them to pay for your oil changes. Then again, an auto oil change is like $35.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to do those according to the logic, which I hope people stop listening to because it's wrong, but you're supposed to do those every 3 months. That's 4 times a year. You're supposed to do those. That's like $120 a year. But that's it. That's like $120 a year. But yeah, your insurance company won't freaking pay for those. Part of the reason is your insurance company will tell you flat out, if your engine seizes because you didn't change your oil, that's not something we're paying for. You did that on your own, dumbass. When we get into health insurance, that becomes a bigger problem. Somebody who is like diabetic and continues to eat donuts like a dozen a day, and ends up in some sort of serious medical issue, if their insurance company goes, dude, we told you not to eat the fucking donuts, this is on you, and then denies your claim, they will be murdered in the press. Insurance company denies, insurance claim, will make headlines. Because health insurance is expected to cover everything no matter what reason. In some cases, all right, I feel that's justified. Pre-existing conditions, I thoroughly agree, should be covered. Although, to be fair, a lot of the reason they weren't covered in the past was because there were laws in place that prevented it from being affordable to cover those people. Because back when saying, no, I don't want insurance was still an option, the pool of people contributing to insurance was smaller, and therefore there was less money in that pool to draw from. So insurance companies wanted to charge more for people who had pre-existing conditions. I don't actually know how much more. To be fair, they might have been looking to charge obscenely more, but I also can't believe that it would be more than what it costs to do it without insurance. So, even then, taking the insurance would have been cheaper, because let's face it, if it wasn't cheaper, you wouldn't take the insurance, because that was an option. So yes, it would be expensive, but it wouldn't be more expensive than paying for it out of pocket. But due to laws on the books that prevented insurance companies from charging that much, insurance companies just said, yeah, we're not ever doing pre-existing conditions. We will go bankrupt if we do it. I'm sure that was truth mixed with corporate doublespeak trying to protect bottom lines. They're still corporations, don't get me wrong. They'll lie. But I'm really, really hoping that an outright lie would be noticed. So there was still some truth to it that, yes, it would be prohibitively expensive to take on the burden of pre-existing conditions with the laws preventing them from also raising prices.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of this lowers costs. We have to lower costs, in my opinion. And the only way to lower costs is to completely gut the system and start over. And I'm not a health insurance guy. I'm not a guy who understands this enough to know how to go about gutting it, because you don't want to gut the whole system at once. We're talking, to use another metaphor, if the health insurance system or the healthcare system is your house, and your house is falling apart, it is like on the verge of being condemned, and you need to remodel it, you don't gut the whole house and then try living in it. You gut individual rooms, and you make do with the fact that room is off limits. And the problem is, if they gut the bathroom and it's the only bathroom in the house, and it's going to take 6 months to put the bathroom back together, you have to go crap outside or at the gas station down the street or something for the next 6 months. And that is a pain to endure. And when you go extrapolate that to an entire healthcare system, there are going to be people who suffer doing this.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. But then again, like I already said, there are people suffering under the Affordable Care Act. People had 300% markups in their insurance premiums to cover all of the people that were getting discounts. Because all that money has to come from somewhere. The only two choices are the people who can quote unquote afford to pay more, or taxes. And let's face it, taxes are just coming from those quote unquote people who can pay more. It's just being taken without their permission. Without their having any say in it. That's straight out of their paycheck before they fucking bought healthcare.
Yeah. Although
they no longer have a choice in healthcare either. They can't say no to healthcare. There has to be healthcare. So yeah, I mean, any way you look at it, somebody here is going to suffer. I don't care what you enact. So you have to look at it from two ways. One, who's going to suffer the most? At a cursory glance, getting rid of Affordable Care Act is probably going to cause the most suffering. But then you also have to ask, who's going to suffer long term. Because if we don't find a way to get costs under control, and the Affordable Care Act is doing absolutely nothing to stop costs and the rise of costs and the expense of the costs here. The Affordable Care Act is going to eventually end up with costs so ballooned you still have to gut the system and start over. Except if you keep waiting, you might actually have to gut the whole system at once because the whole thing might collapse. And then even more people will suffer. I'm not knowledgeable enough on this topic. I'm not certain anybody is knowledgeable enough on this topic because I'm not certain the knowledge yet exists. I don't know if there's enough studies done to accurately predict which method is better. But I almost always side with long-term viability over short-term gains. So I would much rather see a plan put in place that slowly but surely completely reforms the entire system.
That would just in general be a better plan overall after hearing everything that you said.
Yeah. So and once again, I'm not terribly knowledgeable. I do know some broad strokes things. The first thing that I say has to go is insurance companies. I don't know how many people know this, but insurance companies actually negotiate with hospitals for prices. And usually it's not, we will spend $10 on this, we will spend $10 on that. It is, we will get 50% off of every procedure of this type. Whatever it costs, whatever the final bill is, we cut that bill in half. That's what we pay for. You're going to be happy with that hospital. What does the hospital do in response? They double all their prices. So now the hospital is getting what they actually legitimately need to pay for everything because they have doubled all their prices. Unfortunately, anybody who doesn't have insurance gets charged that double price. Because if the hospital isn't charging them the double price, the insurance company will come back and go, why are you only charging us double price? That's cheating. Nope, hospital has to charge everybody the double price. So if you don't have insurance, your healthcare costs just doubled because the insurance company demanded to only have to pay half of what you do. Now, you have to get an insurance company because it's the only way you can afford healthcare.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, the insurance company forced all the prices to double.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are hospitals out there that will gladly, if you approach the hospital and say, hey, I'm having difficulty here, the hospital will gladly go, oh yeah, how about we cut your whole bill in half for you? As a special thing we're doing just for you. And they will gladly do it because that's actually all the money they need. They don't need double the money, but they need to make it look like they do to prevent the insurance company from calling them liars and frauds and getting the prices lowered back down again. So you have to know this is a thing, and you have to approach the insurance company.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to stop insurance. I mean, like, I have auto insurance. If my car gets wrecked, I have never been told by the insurance company, go talk to these people. I have gone to whichever body shop I wanted to, gotten a quote from the body shop, sent it to the insurance company. The insurance company looked it over, said yes or no, and mailed me a check. Not the body shop, me. They mailed me the checks that I could give it to the body shop to pay for the work. Because the insurance company does not have some special deal with the body shop where they're going to charge all non-insured people twice as much. So, yeah, no, we need to stop that shit. Insurance companies should not be making these backroom deals to drive up healthcare costs, because that is literally all that it's doing. It is driving up healthcare costs.
Yeah, and like I started noticing that more after we because we had to the audience now, we had a mini discussion about this a couple days ago, and after.
Yeah, for the audience, Wesley is 19. His mommy pays for his insurance, or maybe his daddy. I don't know.
One of the two.
See, he doesn't even know which one.
Well, it's weird because I moved out of my mom's house and they're like, yeah, we can't cover you anymore. So my dad, son of a, is covering me now.
Okay. I suppose it might be because you moved in with your dad. But from what I understood, according to the Affordable Care Act, until you were 24, unless you got your own insurance, your parents were still required to put you on their health insurance plan, regardless of whether or not you lived at home.
It's I think it had something to do with because my mom gets government assistance.
Well, it's probably because you moved in with your dad.
Mm.
Like, there's an excellent possibility if you'd gotten your own apartment somewhere, she'd still have to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
But because you moved in with your dad and they are legally divorced.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was part of it there.
Yeah, but the other night I was talking with my dad, or listening to my dad talk about the Healthcare Act, and then I was also reading the messages me and Travis were having at the same time. And it kind of really put it into perspective for me. I do view that we should not be paying these high premiums, but that we should be enacting in ways that we don't have to pay such high premiums.
Yeah. But yeah, another thing that absolutely has to change is where the insurance comes from. Technically, this is a thing the Affordable Care Act is sort of doing, but not really. Because right now, employers pay for health insurance. And this goes way back to like the 40s.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe even the 30s. Sometime after income tax became a thing, because income tax was not originally a thing in the U.S. It was something from back in the 30s and 40s they enacted. Income tax was a thing. And employers, as a way of circumventing income tax laws and incentivizing people to come work for this company, started offering, hey, we will pay for your health insurance. We will buy the health insurance, and then it covers you. Therefore, it's not actually income, and you won't get taxed for it. And a lot of people went, hell yeah, sign me up. Some number of years later, I don't know how long this went on, I clearly did not live during that time, but some number of years later, the insurance code got codified. The government, of course, noticed that this was a thing being done, and the government got together and said, okay, you know what? We will, in fact, count insurance as a pre-tax thing instead of a post-tax thing. Now, because you got to avoid taxes by your employer buying your insurance and paying for your insurance, it became a much more appealing thing. And of course, at the time, most employers were paying for all of the healthcare insurance. As we started getting up into the 80s and 90s and stuff, healthcare costs start going up, insurance prices start going up, and the company could no longer afford to pay for all of your insurance, so they started passing the cost on to you, but it was still pre-tax, so it's still cheaper to get insurance from your company through your employer.
Yeah.
The problem with this is the insurance company knows who the customer is, and it's not you. It's not the employee. It's the employer. The company is the insurance company's customer. So they don't put insurance packages together that will be something you, the employee, want. Because that would be, they'd have to have a lot more packages. Me, a single white guy in my 20s, well, I'm not in my 20s anymore, but I used to be, a single white guy is going to have vastly different insurance expectations than a single mom in her 40s. Mm-hmm. neither of us could be employed at the same company. So rather than putting together a package that I would like and a package that she would like and a package that literally, the tens and dozens and hundreds probably of different scenarios of what would be good health insurance for different people in different parts of their lives, because I'm going to hit 40 eventually and 50, and my insurance needs are going to change, and it would be really nice if my insurance package changed with it. But I'm not the customer. My employer is. The company is. So the insurance companies put together packages that were nice, broad, sweeping things. They included some things that 40-year-old single mom would like. They included some things that some 60-year-old, people looking forward to retirement would like. They put together some things that some young 20-year-olds would like, and bam, there you go. Here's a package. And a company looks at it and goes, oh, yeah, that covers pretty much all of our workers to some degree or another. Bam, that's our insurance. And that's the insurance package they get. So it's kind of like cable bundling. I have to pay to cover all these menopause procedures, even though I'm not, I am technically insured for menopause. I'm never going to get menopause.
Well, you never know, man.
And some people will be like, oh, well, when you get married, you'll be happy. Your wife would be happy you have that if she doesn't have her own insurance. If she's on your insurance. Well, see, here's the thing. When I got married, it'd be nice if I could change to insurance that had menopause coverage. Because, yeah, you're right. My wife, if she's on my insurance, will probably like that when she's going through menopause. Right now, I don't need it. But because I can't get an insurance coverage catered to me, it screws up. And insurance companies, they know who their customer is. They set prices, they set terms, they set all of that stuff so that it works for the company. And a company will go, yes, we will get your Blue Cross Blue Shield, or yes, we will get your Aetna, or yes, we will get your whatever other insurance company they decide to go for. Because the insurance company doesn't have to sell me on the idea that this is good insurance. For all I know, Blue Cross Blue Shield might have better insurance for me, but Aetna has better insurance for the company. So the company gets the Aetna insurance. So many years of this, and the costs are all screwed up, and inflation's going up because we don't have competition. For auto insurance, for house insurance, for every other kind of insurance I have, I'm the customer for the insurance company. I go to my insurance company and I tell them, hey, I only drive 3,000 miles a year, maybe. And they go, hey, we have a discount for people like that. I go to an insurance company and go, hey, I'm in college. They're like, hey, we have good student discounts. I go to my insurance company and I say, hey, I have homeowners insurance with you. And they say, hey, you know what? We're going to give you a discount on your car insurance because you bundled with us. I don't get any of those benefits from my health insurance because the health insurance isn't being provided to me. It's being provided to my employer. And at least so far with the Affordable Care Act, it might, this is one of the situations where the Affordable Care Act may cause changes somewhere down the line, but it would be an unintended side effect of the fact that under the Affordable Care Act, more and more companies are not willing to offer insurance, and more people now have to go to the marketplaces that were set up in various states and federal governments and what have you, where you can get insurance. Right now, those policies are the same policies that the insurance companies are marketing to big corporate clients, marketing to employers. They're just also being offered to individuals. If enough individuals are buying insurance through this and they make enough noise saying they want individual insurance plans, the insurance companies may start to change things to have individually tailored insurance plans available on these markets. But once again, that would be an unintended side effect of the Affordable Care Act, not a deliberate thing they were trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the third thing is a thing that is not an Affordable Care Act thing. It is crap. I don't remember what that act is. It came around the same time as the Affordable Care Act, and I do know Trump has said he is not going to stop it. He's going to keep it going. It was crap. What was that called? Anyway, basically the thing they're trying to do is turn healthcare into a quality thing over its current system. Basically, currently, you go into healthcare and they're like, okay, we are going to treat you for this disease.
Patient
regardless
protection?
of whether or not you actually recover from that disease, you pay the same amount.
Are you talking about patient protection? Or, no, wait, never mind.
No, it's got a like 6-letter acronym. It's like MACTA or something like that.
I'm Googling right now, so. MACTA?
That might be it. MACTA?
MACTA.
Maybe. But anyway, so while he's looking it up, to continue where I was going with this, if you look at, say, your car insurance again, if you take your car into the body shop to have it fixed, MACRA, MACRA.
MACRA?
Yes, MACRA.
Okay.
That's what just came to me. But anyway, so yeah, if you take your car into the body shop and they return it to you in pieces, you're not expected to pay the $5,000 it would take to, rebuild your car. They will say, yeah, no, we can't actually do this, and they won't charge you for doing it. In healthcare, they do. Regardless, you are paying to be treated, and it doesn't matter what the outcome is.
It is called the Medicare Access and Chip Reauthorization Act.
Yeah. It's got something to do with the way they pay Medicare subsidies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it straight up says that you are being paid for quality of care, not quantity of care.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas right now, you're definitely being charged for quantity of care. It's why in some places, I don't know if this is actually true, but I do know it's a thing my dad has long complained about. If you go into a hospital with something wrong with you, they will have like 6 doctors consult on your case, and every time another doctor consults on your case, they get to bill you for an hour of their time at their hourly rate. Even if all 6 doctors were in the room at the same time, you get billed the hourly rate for 6 different doctors.
Wow.
Even if all of those doctors walked out of the room and went, nope, no idea, have no idea what's wrong with him. Yeah, like they could look at you and bring in the proctologist, and he looks at your x-rays and goes, nope, that's not a proctology issue. Try the urinologist. The urinologist comes in and goes, nope, that's not a urinology issue. He leaves. So you call up the oncologist, and the oncologist comes in and goes, yeah, it's cancer. You you are not just charged by the oncologist who diagnosed cancer. You're also charged by the proctologist and the urinologist who both came in and went, nope, I can't help.
Okay, I have a serious question. Is a urinologist an actual thing?
I don't know if that is the accurate term for it, but yes. Being a guy who specializes in urinary tract and urinary tract diseases, and I do believe they also blend in with reproductive science, or reproductive medicine.
Gynecologists?
Well, because there's male reproductive medical people too, who I don't believe are called gynecologists, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that. But yeah, I would not be surprised if urinology is a specialty.
That'd be an interesting conversation to have with someone. Why'd you go to college? I wanted to study urine.
Well, you're not just studying urine. You're also the bladder, the kidneys, the urethra, and the various diseases that affect those things. But no, so you're being charged by all of those people. So yeah, it's clearly quantity, not quality. The big issue with moving into a quality thing, and this is not a mark against it, it's a thing that has to be watched, monitored, and prevented when it actually becomes a problem. Not throw out the baby with the bathwater and never go into a quality-based system, because this can happen. But you do have to watch for doctors who are avoiding care because they won't necessarily be able to provide quality things. Like if you have a terminal illness, you have to make sure that quality care for a terminal illness is defined as something other than guy lives. Because if the definition of quality is guy gets better, nobody's ever going to treat a terminal illness again. Because there is no getting better. That's why it's a terminal illness.
Wow.
So yeah, we have to avoid that becoming a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, charging for quality, especially my example where you would be paying for the doctor who actually diagnosed you. And I mean, don't get me wrong, if the proctologist examined you for like 12 solid hours because they honestly thought it was a proctology thing, and then they went, oh, no, this is actually cancer, yeah, the proctologist should be getting paid. But then again, he was, as far as I'm concerned, giving good quality care. Because he honestly thought that you had a proctology issue when he was
wrong.
Yeah, when he was examining you. So, but yeah, those are the three big things that I see as being things that should change. And the Affordable Care Act only addresses one of them in an accidental fashion.
Wow, that's just. So
yeah, it's I know the Affordable Care Act gave millions of people who actually need medical insurance. And I hate to sound like I'm advocating that they lose their medical insurance, because I don't want them to lose their medical insurance. I don't want them to get less healthy than they are and maybe die from these things. I want them to continue being cared for. But I also don't want to continue trying to fix a clearly broken system and patch it together. As far as I'm concerned, going back to my house analogy, we walked into the basement, saw the floor joists cracking, and started duct taping popsicle sticks to them.
It'll work,
sorry,
I swear.
That's not what we need to jack up the house, remove the broken floor joists, put in new ones.
Yeah.
We need to actually fix this. And unfortunately, don't think that's ever going to happen because there's enough people on every side of this argument that are rightfully afraid that if we try fixing this, they are going to get lost in the shuffle and bad things will happen to them. Bad things happen to people in the Affordable Care Act who said we're going to get left out. If we get rid of the Affordable Care Act, then a new Republican thing gets put into place. People are going to get left out. No matter what we do, people are going to get left out. We need to try and enact something that is actually going to solve the problem and will prevent as many people as possible from getting left out, and hopefully putting a system in place where we can locate those who are being left out and get them back into the system as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is my view on the Affordable Care Act. And I'm going to say I'm for Trump's repealing it, although they've got to replace it with something. And I don't know what they're going to replace it with. If they don't have a backup plan in place, oh God help us. Because that is just going to leave those 30 million people or whatever the number is, sitting out with nothing to go back on. And that is not a thing I want to have happen.
Yeah, that's just it's something that shouldn't happen.
But yeah, the Affordable Care Act is not cutting it. It's not doing it. I don't want to just patch the Affordable Care Act. I don't want to patch anything. The patching isn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are literally staring at a burst dam, and we keep sticking our fingers into the holes that are finger-sized, while ignoring the gaping chasms next to us, because literally all we know how to do is stick our fingers into the holes that are finger-sized.
I'm remembering
nobody knows how to fix the rest of this.
I'm remembering a scene from Ice Age with the squirrel now, where he caused a giant flood, and he's sitting there trying to plug up all the holes, and he's just slow.
Yes. Yeah, that is basically where our medical industry, our healthcare industry is at right now. Everything everybody is trying to do is frickin' plug up a burst dam using their fingers.
Yeah.
And it only ever worked the one time in that one story. And let's face it, you'll notice that kid was not planning on standing there with his finger in that dike the whole freaking time.
Yeah.
He was not planning on living there,
Little campfire going on.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Wesley. If the Affordable Care Act does get screwed up, and there's an excellent possibility that with the Republican-controlled Congress and the Republican White House here in the U.S., that the Affordable Care Act will at least be defunded, if not outright repealed, then you may have to buy insurance.
Yeah.
Distinct possibility that until 24 years old thing will go away, especially because you are currently planning on moving out of your dad's and into your own place.
Yeah, which is one of the things where, I was doing some number crunching while I was filling out my applications earlier for jobs at the place I'm moving into, and I was like, yeah, if I work 30 hours a week, I can make $1,000 a month. Then I hear stuff about how healthcare might be expensive, and I have ADD, which requires me to have bi-yearly checkups and also get prescriptions for Adderall. So I do not know how my insurance plan would look.
Yeah, I don't know. What you need to do is, see, back in my day, we treated ADD the way we treated all problems. Alcohol. So you got to turn 21 and you stop going to the doctor and you just drink. It's clearly going to solve everything.
Well, I do have a way of kind of self-medicating, but that requires me buying a Monster every day.
Yeah, alcohol is not generally good for you. I think Monsters might be worse.
Yeah. But if I'm just that's one of the things that scares me the most about moving out. It's like, how am I gonna afford insurance and everything?
Well, the good news is that you, at least for now, and actually there's a distinct possibility that even with the defunding of the Affordable Care Act, which is the current plan, because the Republicans don't have enough people in the Senate to actually repeal the full bill, while that will get rid of all the subsidies to make insurance cheaper for poor people, it does not remove the requirement for the parents to pay for their children's insurance up to 24. So unless your mom or dad's insurance cost skyrockets, and they decide to stop paying for insurance, and they will rather pay the fee, the fine for not having insurance that the Affordable Care Act also introduced, which I loathe and didn't talk about at all during this. But yeah, there's the distinct possibility of you still having insurance. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a thing. So, yeah, I could continue to go on, but I think that's enough. That got the main points about the Affordable Care Act, its repeal, and why I don't like any system for fixing the insurance system that I've heard. The healthcare system needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, and I haven't heard anybody propose that yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have anything else you want to say, Wesley?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay. So this has been the Esoteric Podcast's take on American healthcare and the Affordable Care Act and its potential defunding or repeal, or however we want to phrase that. This is very quickly becoming a weekly thing for us, where we talk about whatever it is we feel like talking about. We might just make it official here in the future. Until we do that, every Tuesday night, you can listen to us review soundtracks, mostly for video games. So far, it's always been from video games. We may move into movies. We haven't decided yet. Those go up Tuesday nights on YouTube. You can also hear our live podcast on Twitch on Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, where me and Wesley and our third member, RJ, all discuss whatever movies and video games and music and maybe books sometime. If some good books come out, that we can we discuss those and our opinions on those. It's usually about a 2-hour podcast on Sundays. We, of course, edit that down to an hour and a half podcast that we put up on YouTube on the following Saturdays. And look for more stuff for us coming out in the upcoming year. Check out Twitter, where we will, at the very least, keep talking about when our stuff becomes available. Here in the near future, we are going to actually start engaging people on Twitter. Someday, I swear. And if you really, really like what we're doing, you want to support us, you want to give us some money so we can buy cameras, better microphones, maybe afford healthcare, while having part-time jobs, so that we have the time to do all these podcasts and other stuff we're looking to do. Go over to Patreon, support us on Patreon. We're the Esoteric Podcast over on Patreon. We'd love to hear from you there. Like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. Yeah. And with that, I'm out.
Yeah. Until next time, or we'll see you guys later. Goodbye.